All right. Good morning, or good afternoon, depending on what part of the country you're joining us from. Coach Kevin here, and let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'd like to do is go ahead and share my screen with you. And if you don't mind putting yourself on mute for now, we'll give you the opportunity to talk in a little bit. But if you guys can all go on mute right now, that would be terrific. All right, I think we've got someone here, or I may have to put everybody on mute. Let's see. Yep. All right. So got you guys on mute here. Come out of screen share. I got to fix something here really quick. All right. Close that up. Back to sharing the screen. And okie dokie. Here we go. All right. First thing I'd like to do. Hey, whoever just came off mute, can you please mute yourself? Somebody.
Is ongoing economic issues in our pandemic response, dealing with darkness before the dawn. Today, we're going to talk about
Lillian. Can you please mute yourself?
Very hot topic right now, and there are all sorts of ethical
And
issues
Michael.
That we could discuss. Some of them are very broad.
Okay. All right. Usually that doesn't happen. What's up with you guys this morning? Okay. Here we go. Let's go back to what we were meant to be doing. All right. Well, welcome again. First thing I would like to do as we get started here is point out for those of you who joined us for the first time today and you're new with us, we have a Facebook group that coincides with our meetup group. It actually has the same name. I want to be really rich, and I do not apologize for it. We invite you to come join us in our Facebook group. The way to find us is go into your own Facebook account and type into your search function the name of the group. I want to be really rich. I do not apologize for it. Come ask to join us. The other way you can find us is to go directly to facebook.com/groups/I want to be really rich. All right. So that's how you can join us. The reason you would want to join us, a few reasons. If we have any special announcements, we usually try and pin it to the very top. And then right after that, as long as I remember to hit the record button each day, we have these Zoom meetings. We go ahead afterwards and they go ahead and get posted into the group. So we're here with you Monday through Friday. And let's say, for instance, we're in the process of studying a particular piece of material and you make it Monday, Tuesday, for some reason, Wednesday, something's going on and you can't make it. And then you're here with us on Thursday and Friday. Well, you can go into the Facebook group to find the recording so you can go ahead and get caught up with us if you like. The other thing that you can do, of course, is if you attend a particular meeting and you really enjoy it, typically within about 24 hours or so, sometimes even a few hours after, just depends on what I've got going on. But usually, later in the day or the very next morning, whatever was done gets posted there so you can go ahead and review whatever it is you really liked. So good reasons to join. Also, we're only here so long with each other each day. And some people will pop in about material and things that we're doing and ask questions. So that's a good place to go ahead and ask questions. All right. The next thing I want to point out to you right now is we're in the process of going through a book right now called The Power of Awareness. It was written by Neville Goddard. I happen to have my own Kindle copy and my own Audible copy, and I've gone through it several times recently. And out of what we've been studying right now, it seemed like the logical place to go. Actually, it felt more intuitional than logical, if intuitional is an actual word. Inspirational. I was inspired that this is what we should be going through right now because, and I'll give you guys that are just joining us kind of a little synopsis of what we've been doing since November 5th when we started. We started out with a book by Wallace Wattles called The Science of Getting Rich, which actually puts together the formula itself for attracting more wealth and money into your life. Then after that, we went through a book called Hidden Treasures. That is written by Leslie Householder. That's a much newer book than The Science of Getting Rich. Science of Getting Rich was 1910. Leslie's book was probably around 2000 and I'm going to guess 4 or 5 when that book originally came out. So much newer, but Hidden Treasures is about the 7 laws that govern attracting the money and wealth you want into your life, as well as many other things. A lot of people are aware of the law of attraction, which is actually a subsidiary law to the law of vibration, but not everybody is aware that there's actually 7 laws that govern receiving the money and wealth into your life. And if you're not following the laws, and when I say the sense of following the laws, if you're not in obedience to those particular laws, then you don't get the results that you want. For instance, you don't have to understand that the laws exist or not. They are always functioning. If anybody ever says the law of attraction does not work, no, that's not the case. The law of attraction is like gravity. It's always in play. It's always working. Whether or not you get the result you want is dependent upon your following and being obedient to the law so you don't break yourself against it. What I mean by that? Well, law of gravity, you could break yourself against the law. You could literally harm and kill yourself if you aren't following the precepts upon that law that will actually bring to you what you want versus harm to yourself. So when you are wanting something and you're putting out the intention to manifest it in your life, if you're in disobedience to the particular law that governs what you're trying to accomplish, that law, you will break yourself against it. At the very least, you'll be very frustrated because you won't get what you want. So understanding those laws and how they function is totally, fully important. After that, we went through a book that I would call the Reader's Digest of the Law of Attraction, called It Works. After that, we went through an article that my personal coach, I hired Bob Proctor once upon a time to be my coach, mentor, and trainer, which he was. And I've also become a coach, mentor, and trainer for his programs, but now I am independent. But one of the articles that he gave me was called Decision. And that is something that most people have a difficult time with. So we went through that. That actually only took a day. The Reader's Digest version, It Works, and the Decision article took a day. Then we hopped into Joseph Murphy's classic, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. You can know how the laws work. You can be given the formula for manifesting what you want. But if your subconscious mind has a program running in opposition to what you really want to receive in your life, it's going to get in your way. It's actually going to sabotage you and you won't get the results that you want. So we need to understand how the mind works, and particularly our subconscious mind, how it got programmed the way it did, what it actually does, what its purpose is, how to reprogram it, and how to utilize it and work together with it in harmony so that it actually is in harmony with the laws that we're trying to follow. So it actually will help us in bringing the results we want. Your subconscious mind can be either your greatest friend or your worst enemy, depending upon if what you're wanting in life is in alignment with the programming in your subconscious mind. But once it is in alignment, your subconscious mind will help move heaven and earth to make sure you get what you want. So that's why it becomes your greatest friend. Okay, and now we are actually in the power of awareness. Power of awareness is to help you better understand how you work, okay? Who you actually are and what powers you actually have available to you as the type of person that you are. We are actually spiritual beings living in a physical reality right now. And because of that, we're a little bit out of sorts. This actually, the life that we're living right now is not necessarily completely in alignment with what we want. That's why we tend to want things that are better than what we currently have. Because we understand that currently, right now, we are not all we can be. We're not doing all we truly want to do, and we don't have all that we truly want to have in our life. So there are things that are missing. If nothing was missing whatsoever, I highly doubt you would have joined the Facebook group, okay? So we're understanding who we are and what kind of power we have. And for you, if you would like to, I typed into Google the Power of Awareness PDF. Up came this, is what you may get a different search for your first one, but this came up for me as the first one. And the Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard Law of, and it's on a website called www.law-of-attraction-haven, HAVN.com, that says a few other things. If you click on that particular link, it will bring you to here. Now it'll actually bring you to the front page of this particular PDF file, which is the book itself. And I liked this copy. So what I did is use my own download function and downloaded it. I didn't have to put in name, email, or anything, which is terrific. So now I have a copy of it here that I'm sharing with you on my screen. And the reason I went through the trouble to find one like this instead of using my own Kindle or something is whenever it's possible to do so, I like to give you the same material that we're going through so you can have a copy for yourself. I did that with Bob Proctor's article. I did that with this work. It works as far as Bob's article wasn't available to just find on the internet, but I uploaded it into the Facebook group and told everybody where to go get it. But if I find something that is already on the internet available for free, I'll point out where you can go get it so that you can follow along with us and or get caught up. Obviously, we've been going through this for a little bit because we're on chapter 22 of, I believe, 27 or 28 chapters in this particular book. What we're going to go ahead and do right now is I'm going to start reading where we left off on Friday, which is right here. I'll share commentary where I feel it's appropriate. And then for you guys, what we do is we go ahead and have a discussion and a question and answer opportunity. We leave about 10, 15 minutes at the end to do that. So if you're typing into chat and asking questions, understand, at least for me, I'm not paying any attention to it. What'll happen is when the time is appropriate, we will come out of screen share and you guys have the opportunity to unmute yourself and share whatever you want to share or ask whatever questions you want to ask. And we'll do that when the time is right. But for now, we will go ahead and get started with going through this. And you may not see this, but I'm just moving some stuff around on my screen so I can see it better. And I'm going to get a sip of water and we're going to jump right in. Okay. Chapter 20, persistence. And he said unto them, which of you shall have a friend, and shall go unto him at midnight, and say unto him, friend, lend me 3 loaves, for a friend of mine in his journey is come to me, and I have nothing to set before him. And he from within shall answer and say, trouble me not. The door is now shut, and my children are with me in bed. I cannot rise and give thee, I say unto you. I cannot rise and give thee. I say unto you, though he will not rise and give him, because he is his friend, yet because of his importunity, so his asking, he will rise and give him as many as he needeth. And I say unto you, ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. There are 3 principal characters in this quotation. You and the 2 friends mentioned. The first friend is a desired state of consciousness. The second friend is a desire seeking fulfillment. 3 is the symbol of wholeness completion. Loaves symbolize substance. The shut door symbolizes the senses, which separate the seen from the unseen. Children in bed means ideas that are dormant. Inability to rise means a desired state of consciousness cannot rise to you, you must rise to it. Importunity means demanding persistency, a kind of brazen impotence. Ask, seek, and knock mean assuming the consciousness of already having what you desire. Thus, the scriptures tell you that you must persist in rising to, assuming, the consciousness of your wish already being fulfilled. The promise is definite that if you are shameless in your impudence in assuming that you already have that which your senses deny, it shall be given unto you your desire, given unto yon, and then be given your desire shall be attained. Looks like we got a typo there. The Bible teaches the necessity of persistence by the use of many stories. When Jacob sought a blessing from the angel with whom he wrestled, he said, I will not let thee go except thou bless me. When the Shunammite sought the help of Elisha, she said, as the Lord liveth and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. And he arose and followed her. The same idea is expressed in another passage. And he spake a parable unto them that men ought to pray, and saying, there was in a city a judge, who feared not God, neither regarded man. There was a widow in that city, and she came unto him, saying, Avenge me of mine adversary. And he would not for a while. But afterward he said unto himself, Though I fear not God, nor regard man, yet because this widow troubleth me, I will avenge her, lest she weary me by her continual coming. The basic truth underlying each of these stories is that desire springs from the awareness of ultimate attainment, and that persistence in maintaining the consciousness of the desire already being fulfilled results in its fulfillment. Let me repeat that, okay? It's not necessarily the pestering attitude, but understand this. The basic truth underlying each of these stories is that desire springs from the awareness of ultimate attainment, and that persistence in maintaining the consciousness of the desire already being fulfilled results in its fulfillment. It is not enough to feel yourself into the state of the answered prayer. You must persist in that state. That is the reason for the injunction, man ought always to pray and not faint. Let me repeat this. It is not enough to feel yourself in the state of the answered prayer. A lot of times we have discussion here and you guys are sharing, which is terrific. You're like, hey, I was able to visualize and I felt really good and it feels like it's already mine and it's working for me. And you're right. And then you come back a week later, why don't I have my stuff? Right? Because of what we're reading here right now. Okay, you did the right thing. You have to continue to do the right thing. It is not enough to feel yourself into the state of the answered prayer. Okay, that's the start. You must persist in that state. That is the reason for the injunction, man ought always to pray and not faint. Here, to pray means, here we go, its definition of prayer for this purpose. Here, to pray means to give thanks for already having what you desire. Only persistency in the assumption of the wish fulfilled can cause those subtle changes in your mind, which result in the desired change in your life. It matters not whether they be angels, Elisha, or reluctant judges. All must respond in harmony with your persistent assumption. When it appears that people other than yourself in your world do not act toward you as you would like, it is not due to reluctance on their part, but a lack of persistence in your assumption of your life already being as you want it to be. Your assumption to be effective cannot be a single isolated act. It must be a maintained attitude of the wish fulfilled, and that maintained attitude that gets you there, so that you think from your wish fulfilled instead of thinking about your wish, is aided by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled frequently. It is the frequency, how often, not the length of time, that makes it natural. That to which you constantly return constitutes your truest self. Frequent occupancy of the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the secret of success. All right. I like all of this book actually, but I like what we're about to go into right now. These are some case histories of people utilizing these principles. It will be extremely helpful at this point to cite a number of specific examples of the successful application of this law. Actual case histories are given in each of these. The problem is clearly defined, and the way imagination was used to attain the required state of consciousness is fully described. In each of these instances, the author of this book was either personally concerned or was told the facts by the person involved. Case study 1. This is a story with every detail of which I'm personally familiar. In the spring of 1943, a recent drafted soldier was stationed in a large army camp in Louisiana. He was intensely eager to get out of the army, but only in an entirely honorable way. The only way he could do this was to apply for a discharge. The application then required the approval of his commanding officer to become effective. Based on Army regulations, the decision of the commanding officer was final and could not be appealed. The soldier, following all the necessary procedure, applied for a discharge. Within 4 hours, this application was returned marked disapproved. Convinced that he could not appeal the decision to any higher authority, military or civilian, he turned within his own consciousness, determined to rely on the law of assumption. The soldier realized that his consciousness was the only reality, that his particular state of consciousness determined the events he would encounter. That night, in the interval between getting into bed and falling asleep, he concentrated on consciously using the law of assumption. In imagination, he felt himself to be in his own apartment in New York City. He visualized his apartment. That is, in his mind's eye, he actually saw his own apartment, mentally picturing each one of the familiar rooms with all furnishings vividly real. With this picture clearly visualized and lying flat on his back, he completely relaxed physically. In this way, he induced a state bordering on sleep, at the same time retaining control of the direction of his attention. When his body was completely immobilized, he assumed that he was in his own room and felt himself to be lying in his own bed, a very different feeling from that of lying on an army cot. In imagination, he rose from the bed, walked from room to room, touching various pieces of furniture. He then went to the window and, with his hands resting on the sill, looked out on the street on which his apartment faced. So vivid was all this in his imagination that he saw in detail the pavement, the railings, the trees, and the familiar red brick of the building on the opposite side of the street. He then returned to his bed and felt himself drifting off to sleep. He knew that it was most important in the successful use of this law that, at the actual point of falling asleep, his consciousness be filled with the assumption that he was already what he wanted to be. All that he did in imagination was based on the assumption that he was no longer in the army. Night after night, the soldier enacted this drama. So he was consistent about this. Night after night, in imagination, he felt himself honorably discharged, back in his home, seeing all the familiar surroundings and falling asleep in his own bed. This continued for 8 nights. For 8 days, his objective experience continued to be directly opposite. So his objective, the outward experience, was directly opposite of his subjective experience, his inward experience, in consciousness each night before going to sleep. So the outside world was saying no, the inside world was saying yes. On the 9th day, orders came through from battalion headquarters for the soldier to fill out a new application for his discharge. Shortly after this was done, he was ordered to report to the colonel's office. During the discussion, the colonel asked him if he was still desirous of getting out of the army. Upon receiving an affirmative reply, the colonel said that he personally disagreed, and while he had strong objections to approving of the discharge, he had decided to overlook these objections and to approve it. Within a few hours, the application was approved, and the soldier, now a civilian, was on a train bound for home. Just in this one case study, guys, there is so much, so much that will show you how to attract what you want and the process. Case study 2. This is a striking story of an extremely successful businessman demonstrating the power of imagination and the law of assumption. I know this family intimately, and all the details were told me by the son described herein. The story begins when he was 20 years old. He was next to the oldest in a large family of 9 brothers and 1 sister. The father was one of the partners in a small merchandising business. In his 18th year, the brother referred to this story, in this story, left the country in which they lived and traveled 2,000 miles to enter college and complete his education. Shortly after his first year in college, he was called home because of a tragic event in connection with his father's business. Through the machinations of his associates, the father was not only forced out of his business, but was the object of false accusations, impugning his character and integrity. At the same time, he was deprived of his rightful share in the equity of the business. The result was he found himself largely discredited and almost penniless. It was under these circumstances that the son was called home from college. He returned, his heart filled with one great resolution. He was determined that he would become outstandingly successful in business. The first thing, so he made a decision, okay? The first thing he and his father did was to use the little money they had to start their own business. They rented a small store on a side street not far from the large business of which the father had been one of the principal owners. There they started a business bent upon real service to the community. It was shortly thereafter that the son, with instinctive, so he's utilizing his vision, okay, his purpose, his intention, and now he has an instinctive awareness, so he's receiving inspiration, revelation, intuition of what to go do. With instinctive awareness that it was bound to work, so he even knew this was going to work through that because of the way he received it. Deliberately used imagination to attain an almost fantastic objective. Every day on the way to and from work, he passed the building of his father's former business, the biggest business of its kind in the country. It was one of the largest buildings with one of the most prominent locations in the heart of the city. On the outside of the building was a huge sign on which the name of the firm was painted in large bold letters. Day after day, he passed by. A great dream took shape in his son's mind. He thought of how wonderful it would be if it was his family that had this great building, his family that owned and operated this great business. One day, as he stood gazing at the building, in his imagination, he saw a completely different name on the huge sign across the entrance. Now the large letters spelled out the family name. In these case histories, actual names are not used. For the sake of clarity, in this story, we'll use hypothetical names and assume that the son's family name was Goddard. Where the sign read FN Moth and Company, in imagination, he actually saw the name letter by letter, J.N. Goddard and Sons. He remained looking at the sign with his eyes wide open, imagining that it read J.N. Goddard and Sons. Twice a week, week after week, month after month for 2 years, he saw his family name over the front of that building. He was convinced that if he felt strongly enough that a thing was true, it was bound to be the case. And by seeing in his imagination his family name on the sign, which implied that they owned the business, he became convinced that one day they would own it. Now, by the way, he's not trying to force his will upon somebody else, just so you guys understand. He was giving the intuition to do this. So this was meant to be his. He wasn't trying to take from somebody else, like we talk about in The Science of Getting Rich. He wasn't trying to take from somebody something they had. He was guided by his vision, and through intuition, inspiration, revelation, through God in the universe, was given these instructions of how to do this, okay? During this period, he told only one person what he was doing. He confided in his mother, who with loving concern tried to discourage him, which is pretty typical, in order to protect him for what he might be a great disappointment. Despite this, he persisted day after day. 2 years later, the large company failed, and the coveted building was up for sale. On the day of the sale, he seemed no nearer ownership than he had been 2 years before when he began to apply the law of assumption. During this period, they had worked hard, and their customers had implicit confidence in them. However, they had not earned anything like the amount of money required for the purchase of the property, nor did they have any source from which they could borrow the necessary capital. Making even more remote their chance of getting it was the fact that this was regarded as the most desirable property in the city, and a number of wealthy business people were prepared to buy it. On the actual day of the sale, to their complete surprise, a man, almost a total stranger, came into their shop and offered to buy the property for them. Due to some unusual conditions involved in this transaction, the son's family could not even make a bid for the property. They thought the man was joking. However, this was not the case. The man explained that he had watched them for some time, admired their ability, believed in their integrity, and that supplying the capital for them to go into business on a large scale was an extremely sound investment for him. That very day, the property was theirs. What the son had persisted in seeing in his imagination was now a reality. The hunch of the stranger was more than justified. Today, this family owns not only the particular business referred to, but owns many of the largest industries in the country in which they live. The son, seeing his family name over the entrance of this great building, long before it was actually there, was using exactly the technique that produces results. By assuming the feeling that he already had what he desired, by making this vivid reality in his imagination, by determined persistence, regardless of appearance or circumstance, he inevitably caused his dream to become a reality. Okay, we're going to stop there for today. And I'm going to come out and see you guys. Hey, thank you, thank you, thank you. Good to see everybody who joined us since we got started. Good to have everybody here. Welcome, welcome. And we may have some new people, so let me explain what we're doing and how this works. At this point, this is your opportunity to share. So what do you share? You can share what some of your thoughts and feelings, maybe some ahas from what it is that we just went through and we're in studying, or what we've gone through and studied in days past together. The other thing is, if you've had any successes in relationship to manifesting things that you want in your life, please share those stories. The other thing that we can go ahead and do is we can ask questions, which is what a lot of people like to do. Questions related to, again, what it is that we went over today, what it is we've gone over in the past, and or anything related to manifesting more money and wealth in your life. Most of you guys know the drill. So what we do at this point is, if you have something you would like to share or a question that you would like to ask, you just go ahead and come off mute, and we will take you in the order that you go ahead and do that. So this is your time. And don't be shy, guys. Come on. I'm gonna play the shyness game today, huh?
Hey, Kevin, it's Audrey.
Hey, Audrey, good to see you.
How you doing?
Terrific.
Good, good. So I'm just joining in for first time in a long time here, but since there's lack of comments, I'll just share a bit of an experience. And I actually need to kind of put this in write this storyline down, but for probably I don't even know how much time it's been that I've been kind of trying to work within the position that I'm currently in as an entrepreneur, meaning I'm an employee, but I have basically ownership rights on some levels, just trying to hone in on kind of next steps and next level of what I'd like to accomplish. So I've been scripting and writing that out. So the storyline of one of the stories that you read in terms of trying to sit there and imagine and dream and kind of think about what it would look like and feel like. So the textures and the colors, and using that vivid imagination to the point that that it becomes so real that it comes true. So one of the things was that I wanted to be able to have an autonomy about all my resources, spaces, places, and be able to have some versatility in workspace. So you couldn't have planned all of this, and it was a number of different situations that occurred that has now allowed me to actually have an entire free space to be able to house my next adventure. And so, it would be a long story to get into, but I'm going to kind of formulate the story around it because it's one of those things that's kind of unbelievable.
Okay, go for it.
So it kind of works, people, just to share some enthusiasm on that. So hopefully someone else has a couple words to share or questions.
Sure. Thank you, Audrey.
Sure.
So let me ask you a question, Audrey, while I've got you here. So essentially, what did you focus on that made all these things come together?
Focused on a regular routine of meditation, scripting, journaling, in essence, kind of playing with the ideas of how I want to use my time, um, and how I would want to best serve, even if it's a small niche of people, in something that I'm interested in doing. And maybe I'm not a proficient or efficient at it just yet, but kind of envisioning how that day would look like and what that client would be like. So I developed a routine by which I was kind of living that schedule, even though it wasn't currently in existence. So just developing a plan and kind of setting some dates and not knowing the how, just kind of letting go of the how, but pointing my thoughts towards what I want, not exactly knowing how I would arrive there.
Cool. So you did it one day and everything showed up.
That would be nice. No, it's consistency, very much consistency, and the doing things that feel good, that are along the lines of what you're trying to achieve. So it's been long in the making.
Awesome. Thank you, Audrey.
I have a question.
Yes. Hi.
Hi, my name is Pat Hamilton.
Hi, welcome.
And hi. You mentioned briefly about when you were doing the reading about in attracting money and in not taking from someone else, but what God and the universe had for you.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you, always stay in line with God's will in your life,
Good
but
question.
attract what you really would love to have if it's God's will? How do you work that?
Perfect. Love your question. And it's a very, very, very good question. So let me back up just a second. The reason I pointed out what I pointed out is let's pretend that there is a house that you like, right? But it's not for sale per se, right? It's not listed, it's not, being marketed that somebody wants to sell this thing, but you fall in love with that house, right? It's not, and so kind of what he was doing, it's not for you to utilize the power that you have to essentially try and kick the person out of the house and get the house for yourself. Okay. But like you just said, I really want it. So how would I know God's will? This was different. It was after he had a vision of what he wanted, and it wasn't that particular building. He wanted to be successful in business. The building in and of itself actually was a representation of the success he was seeking. Okay. So it actually was hey, here's something in the future that would show me that we have attained the success, or we've done well in the business that we're now trying to do. And he received this intuition to go ahead and make that building kind of that focus for him. And that allowed him to create the feeling that moved him through and to receive the guidance to what you don't get to hear in the story, of course, is all the steps along the way that made their other business successful, even to the point where maybe they couldn't afford that building, but to the point where they impressed somebody who could, that literally bought it for them, right? So going to wanting to have something he didn't go after, like, I'm mad at these people, I'm going to take their building from them. This, right? That wasn't what it was. So that's why I said be guided by this. But now to get back to more of your question, how do you know the difference, right? I can tell you a way to keep yourself pretty safe. You can want anything you want, and you can ask God for anything you want, and you can try and get some form of confirmation that it's a good idea for you, whether it's his will or not. The one, though, that I found that serves my purpose the best and is always worked out for me when I take the time to actually do it this way is whatever it is that I think I want or something better, right? Because what I tend to pray is there's something, an affirmation that I've used a lot. I haven't used it as much lately, but one of my favorite things is, please bless that only those people, places, ideas, things, circumstances, and events that are for my highest and best good and greatest joy, prosperity, and abundance are allowed into my life this day and night, and that all others are kept away. So if I'm going down a path that I maybe shouldn't or whatever, I'll be like brought out away from that and put on the path. But the other part is too, I really, really want this thing. Well, God is not necessarily trying to keep me from having good things. That may not be the thing I should have, that one specific thing. So if I go this or something better, when it doesn't turn out that I end up with that specific thing, I'm not upset by it. And every single time that has happened in my life, what I got as a result, the something better.
Right.
Literally look back at what it was that I thought I wanted and go, if I had to trade one for the other, I'll keep the one God gave me.
Take that. Right. Yeah. Thank you. I can definitely relate to that. Many years ago, I can remember I was a single mom with 2 young children, and I wanted to buy them a house. And in the town where I lived, there was a street. It was my favorite street. And whenever I rode down that street, I would say, Father, God, if this is your will, one day I'm going to buy a house on this street. One day I'm going to buy a house on this street. And I did. And it was a house I had never, I had looked at different houses and I thought, how did I miss this house? And it was wonderful. So is that what you mean?
Yeah, well, essentially you can want, right? I want this car, I want this house, I want these clothes, I want this vacation, I want whatever. The willingness to bend our will, so to speak, to God's and say, hey, this is based upon what I'm feeling, right? I'm because we tend to not want something we really can't have because it'll be fleeting. We might have this fleeting thought like, oh, that's really cool. And then we blow it off, right? We don't really want that thing. It's that thing that keeps coming back and coming back.
Yeah.
Right. Then we know if we have that come to us, that is probably, we're pretty much in alignment with God's will for us. We might be off a degree or two because we're not, we might take everything literal. And he's saying, here's a representation of something I want you to have. Right. But I'll give you something even better. Or if you flat out get the thing, right? Like there's so many stories of, I put this thing on my vision board and I did whatever. And I literally showed up and it had the same license plate, right? I mean, it's like, it was literally down to the exact. And some people get all caught up in that where I'm like, okay, I want to be as clear about what it is that I want that I can possibly be, but leave it open to this or something better. That way, you know what I mean? I don't do something to myself that I ought not to do.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Any other comments or questions, guys and gals?
Hi, Kevin. It's me, Tanya.
Hey.
And I've been really vocal lately, and I don't mean to be, but this is so resounding and perfect timing again that I believe that, again, God places us in places with people that we're meant to be. So going through our practice here and deciding what I want and knowing what I want. I had a colleague come into back into my world over the weekend, very surprising, in offering and discussing money and abundance and all kinds of new initiatives, but it didn't make me feel good, Kevin. Actually, the way it was presented was actually quite dark and with anger. And after the conversation, I didn't feel good about it. I made a decision, but I don't believe that's really a path I should take. And could you comment on that when it comes in? And it could be, but it doesn't feel right because it's coming with things that I know are not within the law of what we should be doing.
Okay. Yeah, I'll comment on that. So on the plus, let's go for the plus side first, right? When we start reprogramming ourselves correctly, we become more aware of opportunity, and more opportunity seeks us out too. All right. That doesn't mean every opportunity is the one that we're supposed to take advantage of. So, but the plus part is to go, okay, opportunities are showing up. So that's a good thing. So I'm going to smile, be happy about it. And I'm going to intuitively know what I should and shouldn't do, which you did perfectly, right? An opportunity showed up. So that's the plus. The other side of it is you don't need to take advantage of every opportunity just because it pops up in your face. And that is one of the things that's going to happen as you get better at manifesting money and wealth in your life, is more opportunities, not just strictly the ones that you should do, but more opportunities to have more money and wealth in your life will pop up. So you were in alignment. So I don't even need to discuss with you necessarily what you should have done, because you did exactly what you should have done. Had you done something different, then we might be having an actual discussion, right? But because you were in alignment and you were in tune and you understood, but kind of like, why is the darkness there? Well, because there's two sides. There's, when we went through the law of polarity, there's two sides. There can be opportunity to go down a path and have more money and things like that. They could turn out to be very competitive, right, in nature versus creative in nature. And there could be people with that mindset, that mind frame, that they're still going to pop up as opportunities sometimes for you, but you're not even going to be that interested in those opportunities. And then the willingness to protect yourself in using things like this or something better. Or, hey, if you're ever, and this goes to everybody, let's say something is put in front of you. And the difference is it didn't feel good or bad, right? Then go down the path of learning a little bit more about it, right? It didn't feel good or bad. So go down the path of learning a little bit more about it. Maybe all you're going to get out of it is the learning that prepares you for the next thing that comes up. But maybe as you learn more about it, see, God's also trying to teach us how to grow up and be adults, because we're essentially infants when it comes to manifesting things that we want. And he wants us to learn. So he's going to give us a chance to make decisions, but don't be fearful about it. God isn't going to give you a feeling of fear and doubt. Now, you might have programming that'll mess with you when God already said, now here's the difference. God already said this was a good idea to you, whatever something is. And then you start doubting and fearing and not doing it because somebody says, because you don't know how to do it. God says, this is a good idea, but you don't know how to do it. So that's where your fear comes up, or you've never done anything close to it or like it before. So boom, fear pops up. Somebody says, hey, yeah, you can do this, but it's going to cost this amount of money to do this, that, and the other. And as soon as you hear the word, it's going to cost, you freeze up and shrink. Instead of going, well, God wouldn't ask me to do something and give me, a direction to go if he wasn't going to provide me the way in the first place to do it. So I just need to say yes to this thing because it was right. It feels right. And then I need to trust that God will show me the way. And just because things get hard for me emotionally because my faith is being tested and tried, doesn't mean it wasn't right. I already got that warm fuzzy from God. I already got the big thumbs up from the universe that said, go for it. But go for it doesn't mean he's going to actually take away every single thing in your path and move it all out of the way, so that even the Israelites had to walk across the Red Sea. God parted the Red Sea, but they still had to trek and walk across the entire. You're going to have to do something And that it was miraculous for them crossing the Red Sea. But I bet there were a few of them wondering if the water was going to come crashing down as they were in the middle walking through the Red Sea. But they still had to go take the walk. So if you're worried about the waters come crashing down, just get to the other side, okay? God opened it up for you. Get to the other side and get his help along the way. But you obviously, Tanya, you did a terrific job in that. And yeah, sometimes some dark things are going to pop up. And maybe here's what I wouldn't worry about too much. You may have had some dark thoughts about something. That doesn't make you bad or evil or anything. All right. You may have had some worry or concern, may have brought a little bit of that into you. But the biggest part and the most important part is at the time you got in alignment, you felt that this isn't feeling good or right, and I'm not going to do it. So I wouldn't worry just because a bad thought or bad thing pops up too much. I would just turn it around and go, well, that's not what I want. Boom, I call it the pivot. That's what Esther Hicks calls it. Therefore, what I do want is this, which is the opposite. Is that helpful?
Extremely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Any other questions or comments for today before we go? Not sure why everybody's climbed up today. Let me ask a more specific question. Is there anybody on here that feels lost in what we're studying right now? Or do you feel like I'm getting this stuff? It's making sense to me. And I don't mean everything, but I'm talking specifically the power of awareness, which we've been going through for, I don't know, week and a half, something like that. Thumbs up. Where Paula's getting it.
Kevin,
Yes.
it's Karen Kagi.
Hi, Karen.
This guy's just a little hard for me to understand just because it's such old language. I don't know if other people are feeling the same, but this guy's just a little hard for me to hold on to and grasp.
Okay. What would, if you were to give just a summary of up to now of what you feel he's been trying, if you were to sum up what you feel he's been trying to say in just a few words right now throughout what we've gone through so far, what would you think that he's trying to tell us?
I think it's a lot of what we're getting from the other books, but just like that word that you read, importantist or something like that, and you had to explain what that word meant, you know?
Okay.
I don't know if that's the right word.
The main thing that power of awareness that I get from it, that I feel that's, you know, if I were to like give this like synopsis of what the book is truly about, is one, it's showing us that the only power we really truly have to do anything is with our mind, not with our physical action. We have to take action for sure when it's inspired, but we have to go, and we've gone through other things that have told us this. But what it is that we assume, and I'll say it another way, the stories we tell ourselves or the stories we tell about others. Gossip is a story about another person, right? So walking into a room of people, not knowing anybody there and seeing, okay, this gal's dressed this way and this guy looks this way and whatever, based upon our past experience, right or wrong, doesn't matter. We tell stories. We immediately make judgment, even though I don't judge. Yes, we do. Okay. So by what we do is we assume things. And what ends up ultimately happening for us is our assumptions, especially when they're repetitive, harden into fact for us and they turn into our actual experience. Okay, cool, sort of, right? So if if what I assume, especially if it's repeated, turns into fact, so I can assume anything I want, right? Yeah. Oh, then just only assume what you want. Seriously, only assume what you want. Because, and even about other people. And typically, even if you're having a hard time with another human being on planet Earth that you're just not jiving with, chances are, if you assume the best even about that particular person, and you not just like one time, but like you make that an effort to assume you know, that things will work out with them, one of two things will happen. Their attitude towards you will shift because the energy will have shifted, or you guys will come out of each other's life, so to speak. You'll go different directions. If you work at the same place, you or them will get transferred to something that better suits you, and you won't have to deal with that person at all, right? So it's amazing to go, okay, so what he's saying here is if I assume what it is that I want, and I stay in that assumption, and I do it happily and joyfully and persistently, I really can assume anything I want about my life. So what is it that I want to assume? Now, previously, the previous book, Power of Your Subconscious Mind, talked more about our self-image. We will not outgrow our own self-images. If our image of ourself financially is a certain level, until we make an assumption, until we make that change of what we think of ourselves, we won't get a real change, because what gets reflected back to us is what we think and what we think about ourselves. If we think of ourselves as poor, whether we say different words or not, it doesn't matter. It's the thought, it's the feeling, not just the word. Now, it's good to say things that are positive, right? But go into your imagination, and if you or I don't like something about our life, let's create a new assumption, and let's go live that assumption until it manifests in physical reality, and trust that God and the universe, as we're supposed to take that very first step, and maybe some of those steps along the way, that intuitively they will guide us to make the right step. In the meantime, we go on and live our life. The other thing that we want to make sure that we're doing is we say in the meantime also, okay, so I'm not talking me personally, but I got my job, I got my this, I got my that, right? Okay, but we let's say we sleep 8 hours, which very few of us actually do. Okay, but let's pretend we actually take advantage and do sleep 8 hours. And let's pretend that we work 8. So let's really not call that 8, let's call it 10 because of travel to and from work. I know it's different right now with COVID, but let's call that 10, right? So now you've got 26 hours you've used up out of, or excuse me, you've got 10, yeah, 10 and 6, 16 out of 24, right? You got your 8 and your 10 used up. So what do you do with those other ones? Well, I watch Netflix. I do this, I do that, I do whatever. Well, for right now, if you were trying, like a lot of us did, to become the profession we are when we were going to school or whatever, we took this effort and we condensed it into a period of time to become good at what we do so that somebody would hire us, give us the job or whatever. Or when we first started on the job, we're like, okay, they give you this silly manual or whatever and say, read this and learn who we are. We're like, oh crap, but we're like, but we do it till we get comfortable and then we go. That's what we should do with this, I think. Instead of spending as much time as we do, because we're wanting to rechange our program anyway, because most of our life's on autopilot. That's the problem. It's on an autopilot full of programs that we didn't choose, or we weren't very conscious about it. We maybe chose some, like I started watching this particular show and I really like it. So now for the last 20 years, because it's been on for 20 years in a row, every Friday at 7 p.m., I know we don't do that now, but years ago, right? It was like that show was on this night, whatever. And there were families that literally their life revolved around that one TV show at that time, at that day. And it became a habit. It's almost like if we don't do it, family's grumpy and everything's not happening. But was that something they needed to do? No, it just became a program. Right now, we need to take that type of stuff and go, well, my free time for myself, I should utilize in assuming and creating what I want. If I want more time, then I need to go assume and create more time. I want more money and better lifestyle. I need to assume and create more money and a better lifestyle. I want better fitness, health, relationships, or whatever it is, go assume those things. And if you want it to go faster, it's better to focus on one at a time. Because, trying to learn to tie your shoe and do multiplication tables and master them both in a week. But if you pick one for 1 week and one for the next week, you might actually get it.
Okay. I like what you said about how we are like infants in our desire.
We are.
Yeah.
Because we keep tripping all over the place, don't we?
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Well, it's 11 my time. I don't know what it is your time, just depends on where you are. Any last question or comment that if you weren't being able to ask it right now, you like wouldn't sleep really well. You'd like to get answered right now, I'll stay here for a minute, or if not, we will go ahead and call it till tomorrow.
I have an unrelated question.
Okay.
I financially I'm starting to do better, so I'm really grateful for this. I'm not at the point where to take the group class where you said that you set up with the payment arrangements.
Yeah.
Is there possible you do a smaller class, or are you going to offer something, I guess, more within someone like me, our reach?
Here's what I would actually tell you, Marissa. Is that yeah, it is Marissa. Okay, cool. None of the things I've done financially when I originally did them were within my reach.
I know there's a degree of stretching, and I'm willing to stretch.
Yeah. But no, I'm saying like literally, like I had when I came up, I'm not telling, this was more and this is something else. I came up with $38,000 years ago when I had absolutely zero, no credit, no equity, and owed people a bunch of money. But I had something I really, really wanted, and it ended up manifesting. Bob Proctor has taught me a lesson, a big, huge lesson about people. We will do absolutely anything we really want to do. He goes, just go look at people's garages and closets. I'm not saying what yours does or doesn't look like right now. But what I found is, at least for me right now, I'm talking about, this is in a literal sense, somebody that puts $5,000 into being part of the group we're doing, or the $3,500 down pays the $500 a month for the following 5 months. I haven't had anybody that I've ever done that with, anybody, not end up with much more than they put into it. Sometimes as much as 6 figures more before we finished.
I know, I'm confident of that. I know that.
I know, but if you know that, then you would find someone, and I'm just being, you or any of you would go find somebody else that will give you $5,000 to better your life, or you will find a way to do it. If you were 100% confident that it was going to work out for you and you could pay that person back. And that's ultimately what I've done on most occasions, is worked out a situation or an arrangement or an investment or whatever from somebody to invest in me in whatever business I was doing or whatever learning I needed to acquire. So it's one of those things where lowering the price, I have found, and this is true too, the people that have given me the most money make the most money. Not meaning they already did.
I see what you're saying. It might take longer though. Are you still going to offer it? Are you going to offer, like, is it going to be consistent? Like, are you going to, like, it may take.
I'll keep doing it. At some point it'll go up in price. Once upon a time, my one-on-one coaching was 10 grand and my group coaching was 2,500. Now it's 5 and 20. Just like Bob Proctor's, once upon a time, his was whatever it was. Now he won't do one-on-one coaching for less than about $500,000 to $1 million a year. And you know, here's the crazy thing: the information that Bob is sharing is versus what I might be sharing. He has more experience, but the information's not all that different. It's kind of like going to Harvard versus a community college in that sense. The books that you're given, the things you're given, the things you go study to learn in your profession aren't different, but somehow typically you come out of Harvard, Yale, or someplace like that, and you end up in a different place because of the vibration of the process and who you were dealing with. So I found, for me, I actually did not that long ago offer something to people, and I went through something very similar to what I'm taking the group through now. And I did it for right around $1,000. And people they didn't do their homework. They gave me excuses. They didn't follow through. And I'm just like, that's ridiculous, because my personal time now, and that this will be for you too, and everybody else in the future, my personal time right now is worth a whole lot more. My time's more important to me than anything else, right? So it's not just strictly like, oh, Kevin needs or wants more money. It's, hey, I can choose to do this with my time, or I can choose to do this. I can choose to be with this group of people or this individual, or I can choose to be doing something else. And I found that I've developed now to where, you know, if Bob Proctor was like the best NBA coach out there, I'm like maybe one of the best college coaches out there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. There's a saying, something like you show up for what you pay for or something like that.
Yeah, and here's what I care about more than the money too. If it's a stretch for somebody, I get that. I had someone recently sign up for the group, and they were going to do the payment plan. And I said to this person, I'm not going to take you. And they said, why? I said, because you have the $5,000. I said, the payment plan is for somebody who it's a stretch. I said, what you're telling me, God in the universe, is by paying 3,500 right now, is that you're not committed and that you're not serious about it, because you've got the money. You have the credit, you have the money, you have the ability to write a check right now for 20 if you felt like it. But I'm not going to let you into this group unless you pay the 5 up front. I'm not letting you do 3,500. And they came back ultimately and gave me the $5,000 immediately, because they're like, yeah, you're right. I'm like, look, don't give the message to the God in the universe that you don't trust this. If you don't trust this and don't want it, that's different. Don't do it, right? But don't not do it because of fear. Tell God it's what you want and ask him to show you how to get it. And he will. God in the universe will provide it. Stephanie, you were about to say something. I could tell you popped off for a sec. And you're somebody who signed up for the group.
Well, I was just going to try and share with everybody. I was petrified when I had to give Kevin my credit card, because I have the money. Kevin, you and I had this very discussion. So I just wanted to share with everybody my experience. It's not that I didn't have it. I had it. I had told, the very first thing I said to Kevin when we had about an hour and a half one-on-one, and where I was kind of feeling him out and figuring out if this is something I wanted. I knew I wanted to do this. Let me back up. I knew it was time. Like, I needed a change. And I've said this to the group before. I was ready. I was hungry. And I use that word hungry every time, because that will make you act. And when I spoke to him, I think one of the first things I said was, I'm committed to making a change. So, but then my own programming at the end of it, this is what really turned me around, when Kevin used my own words to make me realize what was going on. At the end of it, I said, okay, well, let me think on this overnight. And he said, well, why do you need to think on it? You already told me you're committed. And I thought about it, and he said, wasn't that one of the first things you said to me when we got on the phone together? And I was like, yeah, I guess I did say that, didn't I? And I realized I was backing myself out of something I really wanted. And then I was just like, you know what? It is what it is. I'm going to slap this down and see where it goes. And it was more, I had actually spoken to another individual about a month prior to meeting Kevin. It was double the price. However, I didn't get the same vibration out of it. When I spoke to Kevin, there's just something that resonated for me that I wasn't hearing with the other individual, who I really liked, great person, saying the same thing Kevin was saying, but for some reason I was like, I don't know. So I hope that what I'm sharing might resonate with those on the phone. And it was like the minute I did this with Kevin, my own vibration changed, because I had a mental attitude that had changed. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. That's why, yeah, 100%. Well, and we haven't even brought the whole group together, and I didn't even ask you how much it was. But your stock double, 8 years in a row losing money on a stock, and then it triples in a day. And you actually took the right actions at the right time, and then it started going down again.
I'm still laughing about that.
Yeah, I know. How much? You're right. So when it tripled, what was it sitting at, and what did it come into? What's the dollar amount?
So it had almost doubled from what I had paid for it. So, and here's the other thing. I had given up on it, and literally a month or two ago, it was down to like $600 was left. And I was like, I'm done with this. I'm going to just take that 600, put it someplace else, and start playing with it and see if I can't grow it back up again. And like I said, from the minute I bought it, that stock went down for 6 years. And I gave up, and I wasn't looking at it. But like you said, the vibration coming into me, someone else called me and said, hey, don't you have BlackBerry stock? And I said, yeah. And they're like, you might want to go look at it. It's going up. And the day that they told me, it hadn't quite hit where I had bought it at, but it was just below that. And I was like, wow. And I had the intention of going and getting online into my Schwab account and kind of looking into it. And I'd forgotten about it. The next day, I almost fell off my chair because I was like, oh yeah, I meant to go look at that BlackBerry stock. I went and looked at it and it had doubled from what I had purchased it at. And I was like, oh my God, in 2 days, it's literally gone from, it was $1.10 and it was up to $28 and I bought it at 14 something. So that tells you, and then, you know, my quantity is my quantity. But at that point, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know it was caught up in that whole Reddit movement or whatever, but it didn't matter. That's not the point of it. The point was that in 2 days, after 6 years and a month in working with Kevin, all of a sudden something that had been a negative in my life turned into a complete positive and plus.
Yeah, and I have you busy doing things every single day, aren't you?
Yes, I was reading yesterday because I was afraid that you were going to ask me. I was like, oh my God, I haven't read.
Yeah, so another thing, that's a point too. We don't keep ourselves very accountable. And I don't like beat you up per se, but I will do things like remind you, Stephanie, that you said you're committed, right? I will take what it is that you should be doing. And when you commit to it, I ask you to commit to an hour a day of doing what I ask you to do, an hour and 10 minutes or so. So you're going to go somewhere between 40 minutes, hour and 10. If you want to go faster, then I tell you, you can do more, I'll give you more. But we're going to work together for at least 6 months, even in the group, and you're going to commit to an hour and 10 minutes a day. And you're going to do what I ask you to do. And I'm not going to ask you to do something that's illegal, right, immoral or unethical. I'm not going to ask you to stand in a corner on your head for an hour and 10 minutes. But there is going to be a little bit of the Karate Kid going on because you need a change in your programming, all of you, or you would have what you want. Same thing. I work within a mastermind group myself of other coaches, and we coach each other because we need it too. Even coaches need coaches, okay? But there's just more to it than, oh, I plop down money and something happens for me. But I'm just telling you right now that my biggest leaps have happened when I stretched and said, okay, I'm going to make my decision. Do I want something? Not can I afford it? And when I make my decision, I had someone years ago said to me, and this wasn't even somebody I actually liked very much, but what they said stuck with me. They weren't a mentor per se, but they might as well have been with what they said. He said to me, Kevin, don't ever let money be the reason for you to do or not do something you really want to do. Don't ever let money get in the way of you doing what you really want to do. Decide if you do or don't want to do it first, but don't make the reason behind that decision based upon if you have the money to do it or not. I'm not saying over the years, because that was told to me back in 2006. I'm not saying every day since that date of 2006, I've always done that perfectly. But I will say every time I followed that advice, it always worked out better than when I haven't. So I'm just sharing with you guys that, you know, yeah, you're here and I'm going to continue to be here. And you can come on Monday through Friday and listen, and we can talk and you can ask questions. And you might think it's the same thing, but it's not. It's not. You know what? You literally started a week ago. I don't know if you've had any positives yet. I mean, we had a little talk, but Mercedes, do you mind coming off and sharing maybe what's happened so far or how you're feeling?
Yeah, so I started a week ago. I kind of felt like Stephanie, where I was terrified at first, but over the week, I feel like I'm learning a lot and I'm starting to feel really good about myself and really feel like this is going to do a lot for me.
Awesome, awesome. Well, and you know, one thing happened right after you did it, because this could be, so here's what she did, guys. She paid for it at a point where she essentially had lost her job. Not that you lost the job, but the government said you're not allowed to do your job right now.
Yeah.
Right? And literally right after you paid for it, a day or two later, your job opened up again.
Yeah. I'm also getting offered gas compensation to go to another location because they have therapists that didn't come back. So I'm also making a little extra money.
Right? Awesome. Awesome. And you and I will be talking really soon. All right, cool. Thank you. Thank you for taking a moment to share that. All right. Any other questions or comments for today? I really would love to work with anybody. I'd like to love to work with all of you because I think you all deserve what you really want. And that's what I'm here for, is to help you get it. But I do understand 100%. One, I may or may not be the person for everybody. And I also know too that yes, what Stephanie said was important. I could tell this was where Mercedes was at. You get to a point where you're just like, I'm done, right? I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I want my breakthrough, right? I'm committed. I'm going to do this. I'm tired of putzing around with this thing. I'm not going to play around for the next 6 months, year, 18 months, 24. I'm just kind of tired of the way things were and I want to change. I can tell that's pretty much what happens. And it's, by the way, it's not people that are necessarily all down and out. Okay. They come to that decision. It's just that decision of, do I really want to repeat Groundhog Day again? Right? Do I really want to repeat this year what I had last year? And most
Want to get off the gerbil wheel, right, Kevin?
right. Do I want off or not? I actually refer to the program, I haven't told you guys this so much, but is my rat race eliminator, because that's essentially what it's designed to do, is get you off that wheel. All right. Thank you for spending the time with us today. And if you would like to talk about coaching, you can reach me at Coach Kevin Sparks @gmail.com. Have an amazing day, and I look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. Thank you.